With a discussion with the 14th chapter, Disappearance of Krishna. So as usual, we'll start with the Mangalacharan. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayaudirayet nashtaprayeshu vadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavate uttam shloke bhaktir bhavatir naishtiki om ajnanatimirandasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai shri guruve namaha. Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimadi Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunnavadi Paschachade Shattarane. So last week we finished our discussion on the 13th chapter of the Bhagavatam, first canto, which essentially covered the topic of Dhritarashtra quits home. So as we know that until the 10th chapter, Sutta Goswami and the sages of Naimisharanya, they were engrossed in Krishna Katha, about Krishna's leaving Dwarka, Krishna's entering into, Krishna's leaving Hastinapur, entering into Dwarka. And then both the sages and Sutta Goswami realize that they now need to start talking about the original subject in hand, which was answering the question of the sages of Naimisharanya. So Sutta Goswami brings his attention back to the circumstances leading to the appearance of the Bhagavatam and the appearance of Sukadeva Goswami. So he first speaks about the appearance of Vidur in Hastinapur, which leads to the disappearance of Dhritarashtra. And in this chapter, he will talk about the disappearance of Krishna. In the next chapter, he will talk about the disappearance of the Pandavas. And then he will talk about the impeding disappearance of Parikshit Maharaj, finally concluding with the appearance of Sukadeva Goswami and Bhagavatam. So the Acharyas say that in a way, Sutta Goswami is clearing the stage for the appearance of the Bhagavatam. And it's indicating a transition of eras. That the Dwapar Yuga is ending, Kali Yuga is beginning, Krishna is departing along with all his associates, and Krishna is being replaced by his sound incarnation in the form of the Bhagavatam. So the 14th chapter has only two divisions. The first division is the observation of the various inauspicious signs by Maharaj Yudhishthir, and the second is the observation of the inauspicious signs within Arjun by Maharaj Yudhishthir. So the whole chapter is seeing inauspiciousness, and both of them are linked to the disappearance of Krishna. The general message is that when Krishna is not there, so Arjun is an individual, and what Yudhishthira observes earlier is outside Arjun. So he's observing both in the environment around him and in the person of Arjuna. So the general message is, when Krishna is not there, then both within and without, there is inauspiciousness. When Krishna is there, then there is auspiciousness both within and without. So there is auspiciousness within the person in terms of the qualities. There is auspiciousness around the person in terms of the environment, nature, the people around, and the converse also. So this chapter has probably one of the most number of verses where Srila Prabhupada does not have a commentary, because these are mostly recording of observations. Prabhupada does relate it to some extent to the philosophical aspect, but mostly it does not have commentaries on the verses. Okay, 114.1. Sutta vacha samprasthite dvarkayam jishnu bandhu didrikshaya yatum cha punyashlokasya krishnasya cha vicheshitam. Sri Sutta Goswami said, Arjun went to Dwarka to see Lord Sri Krishna and other friends, and also to learn from the Lord of his next activities. So Arjun in this verse is called Jishnur. Jishnur Bandhu Drikkasaya. So Jishnu means one who is unconquerable. And in a way we will see how these names of Arjun will be in contrast to the events that are unfolding. So Arjun was in fact unconquerable. He had fought many battles in which he could not be defeated. In fact, he even fought with Lord Shiva. And of course, Lord Shiva defeated him, but Lord Shiva also appreciated his dexterity with weapons. But other than Lord Shiva, he had fought with Indra, he had fought with Chitrangupta, he had fought with very, very powerful warriors like Bhishma Dev. And the fact that he survived the battle was testimony to his prowess. So he was famous as Jishnur. And Krishna is addressed in this verse as Punya Shloka. So Punya Shloka is the one whose glories are sung by the Vedic hymns. So Sutta Goswami is saying that Arjun, the unconquerable, went to inquire about the activities of Punya Shlokas. Punya Shloka is one whose activities are sung by the Vedas. So the mission of Krishna was to relieve the planet of the burden of sinful people, and that had been already completed. So Maharaj Yudhishthira had sent Arjun to determine what to do next. Prabhupada writes that because the Pandavas were eternal and close associates of Krishna, they constantly inquired upon him of what they should do next. So since Maharaj Yudhishthira understood that a major portion of the purpose of why Krishna had descended had been accomplished, he wanted to inquire what is it Krishna is expecting them to do. And in a way, this also exemplifies the mood of a devotee. So a devotee is fully autonomous while being fully dependent. So at every point of time, a devotee is inquiring from Krishna, what is it that you would like me to do? And then having ascertained Krishna's desire, the devotee understands that this is where his independence lies, in executing the desires of Krishna. So that's it's a bit of a contradiction, but it is understood from a more mystical perspective that the jiva, by demonstrating his full dependence on Krishna, actually achieves full independence. Just like it is said that when the living entity understands that he cannot understand Krishna, begins to understand Krishna. So, within Krishna, all these contradictions get resolved. So we see that Maharaj Yudhishthir is also demonstrating the same kind of independent dependence. Okay, next verse, 14:2. Vyatita kati chinmasas tadanaya tato arjuna tadrishaghor rupani nimitani kurudvaha. A few months passed and Arjun did not return. Maharaj Yudhishthira then began to observe some inauspicious omens which were fearful in themselves. So Katichin Masas, few months, is actually 7 months. And this actually in later, just 5 verses down in 114.7, this duration is explicitly mentioned that Arjun had been gone for 7 months. In Kram Sandarbha Jiva Goswami, he tries to establish the chronology of events because, as we have discussed, the Puranas, they don't necessarily flow in the chronological order. So Jiva Goswami says that first Krishna had, under his guidance and inspiration, Yudhishthira had performed the 3 Ashwamedha Yagyas, following which Krishna had returned to Dwarka. And at this time when Krishna had returned to Dwarka, then Arjun had also accompanied Krishna to Dwarka. Now 7 months had passed since Arjun had left to Dwarka along with Krishna, and Yudhishthira had not heard back from him. So Yudhishthira is now worried. And he is more worried because of the inauspicious signs that he has been observing. So Jiva Goswami also mentions that Yudhishthira has been observing these inauspicious signs even before the arrival of Mahatma Vidur. And but he does not mention it to Vidur. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, Maharaj Yudhishthira observed some discrepancies in his kingdom, and therefore he became very anxious about Arjun, who was long absent, and there was also no news about Dwarka's well-being. He suspected the disappearance of Lord Krishna, otherwise there would be no possibility of fearful events. So this correlation requires a little bit of understanding. So on the surface it appears that the disappearance of Krishna is being characterized by this inauspicious omens. And that does not seem to be logical because everything relating to Krishna is auspicious. So Krishna's appearance is auspicious. Krishna's disappearance is also auspicious. So we don't celebrate the disappearance of Krishna because from the more conventional perspective, disappearance has separation built into it. But from a more absolute perspective, Krishna cannot ever be the cause of any inauspiciousness. So the way one understands this is that these inauspicious events were not happening because of the disappearance of Krishna, but because of the appearance of the age of Kali. Now it also happens that the age of Kali established itself as soon as Krishna disappeared. So because the events were closely connected, the general understanding that is received from these is the Krishna disappearance and inauspicious events. But again, factually speaking, if Krishna's disappearance caused inauspiciousness, then Krishna would never disappear, because Krishna would never like to create inauspiciousness. And we know that Krishna actually never disappears. He may change his manifested form, but he is always there. So another way also to understand this is that the disappearance of Krishna was the jivas causing Krishna to disappear, which is basically the jivas forgetting Krishna. So if there is somebody in your house, and as long as you're cognizant of the person, then the person is in your life. You go and say hello to the person in the morning, you sit and talk with the person in the afternoon, you have prasadam with the person in the evening, the person is in your life. And then you become neglectful of the person. The person is in the house, he is still very much present, but you never talk to him. You never go and have prasadam with him. You never acknowledge his presence. Then from your life, that person has disappeared. So this is the characteristic of the age of Kali, where the people, because of their intrinsic nature, cause Krishna to disappear. An analogy that is given to understand this is that it is said that in this age of Kali, there is impiety. But factually speaking, the age of Kali cannot create impiety. What actually happens is that impious people, because of their own desires, take birth in the age of Kali. So it is not very far from the truth to say that the age of Kali is impious, but actually the impiety is created by the people who are choosing to take birth in the age of Kali. So the understanding that is given over here again is that Krishna did not disappear to create inauspiciousness, but the inauspiciousness was created by the people in that in the age that was appearing. And of all of Krishna's pastimes, his disappearance is perhaps the most difficult to understand. So how can God die? So Burijan Prabhu explains that Krishna's death indicates a continuance of his pastimes in another place. Like the sun, he sets in one field while rising in another. Krishna's death is therefore not death as it is understood in the material world, rather it is departure, a word that indicates that there is arrival at some other place. And because this is a preaching point in the sense that sometimes people will ask you that if Krishna was God, then after he died, who was God? Or they might ask you, who was God before he was born? So here the focus is more on who was God after Krishna died. So this is explained by Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma speaks these words after the battle of Kurukshetra, but prior to the deaths of the disappearance of the Yadu Vamsha. So this is that intermediate period that the Kurukshetra battle had ended, but the Yadu Vamsha was still there. So if you remember, there is a period of, this period is that of, so at some places it's described as 34 years, some places it's described as 36 years. So between 34 to 36 years, but more towards the end of this period, Brahma and the demigods, they approached Krishna, and Lord Brahma said, "My dear Lord, previously we requested you to remove the burden of the earth. You have fulfilled our request and have re-established the principles of religion among the pious. Your devotees have distributed your glories throughout the world, and thus everyone can be purified by hearing of you. Descending into the dynasty of King Yadu, you have manifested a unique transcendental form, and for the benefit of the entire universe, you have executed magnanimous transcendental activities. My dear Lord, those pious and saintly persons who in the age of Kali hear about your transcendental activities and also glorify them will easily cross over the darkness of the age. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, O my Lord, you have descended into the Yadu dynasty, and thus you have spent 125 autumns with your devotees. My dear Lord, there is nothing remaining at this time for your Lordship to do on behalf of the demigods. You have already withdrawn your dynasty by the curse of the Brahmins. O Lord, you are the basis of everything. And if you so desire, kindly return now to your own abode in the spiritual world. At the same time, we humbly beg that you always protect us. We are your humble servants, and on your behalf, we are managing the universal situation. We, along with our planets and followers, require your constant protection. The Supreme Lord replied, O Brahma, I understand your prayers and request. Having removed the burden of the earth, I have executed everything required on your behalf. That very Yadav dynasty in which I appeared became greatly magnified in opulence, especially in their physical strength and courage, to the extent that they threatened to devour the whole world. Therefore, I have stopped them, just as the shore holds back the great ocean. If I were to leave this world without withdrawing the overly proud members of the Yadu dynasty, the whole world would be destroyed by the deluge of their unlimited expansion. Now, due to the Brahman's curse, the annihilation of my family has already begun. O sinless Brahma, when this annihilation is finished and I am en route to Vaikuntha, I will pay a small visit to your abode. So, this is essentially, this verse comes in the 11th canto, 6th chapter. And it sheds a little bit of more light on the disappearance pastime of Krishna. Krishna, having accomplished his mission, he initiates the destruction of the Yaduvamshi, and he explains why he wants the Yaduvamshi to be destroyed. And he also indicates that his departure is completely voluntary. Just like he came voluntarily, but in response to the prayers of Brahma and his devotees, he also left voluntarily, but in response to the prayers of Brahma and the demigods. So here Krishna tells Brahma that he will pay a small visit to him on his way back, which is in Brahmalok. So while Krishna was ascending from the material world into the spiritual world, then he passed through all the heavenly planets. And there, this is Sridhar Swami commenting, there all the residents of the planet started praying to Krishna to stop at the planets to spend some time, but Krishna closed his eyes in order to avoid any social obligation. Then we also know that the disappearance of Krishna was linked to the arrow that was cast by a hunter by the name of Jara. And the acharyas explain that Jara was an incarnation of Bhrigu because of the curse of Lakshmi Devi. Because Bhrigu had put his feet on the chest of Lord Vishnu. According to some, Jara was also an incarnation of Vali. because Lord Ram had killed him from hiding. He gave Ali the opportunity to reciprocate and also kill him from hiding. But Srila Prabhupada does not speak too much about these topics. It's just mentioned in some of the lectures, not by Srila Prabhupada, but by Dhanudhar Swami and by Burijan Prabhu, just to elaborate on the past time. Okay, so we'll do the next verse, 114.3. Kalasya chakatim raudra vipriya astratu dharminaha papiyasim nirnam vartam krodaloban ritatmanam. He saw that the direction of eternal time had changed, and this was very fearful. There were disruptions in the seasonal regularities. The people in general had become very greedy, angry, and deceitful, and he saw that they were adopting foul means of livelihood. So kalasya gatim vipriyasta, which means that the flow of time had reversed. So this means that according to the flow of time, there is a sequence of seasons. That after spring comes summer, after summer comes the rainy season, then autumn, then winter, and so on. But the sequence of the seasons had been disturbed, which means that it was cold in summer and it was warm in winter. For us, it's not a matter of a lot of surprise because we witness that on a semi-regular basis. Last winter, I remember, at least in the DC area, that there were days when it was in the 70s, and the trees had got confused, so they had started sprouting leaves and flowers. And of course, when it became cold again, they shed them. And similarly, in the summer season, sometimes we witness extreme cold also. But during that time, it was unheard of. So that is why Yudhishthira is completely bewildered. Sutta uses the word dharmana ritu. So dharma is the essential quality. This is something that Prabhupada often refers to. Dharma is the intrinsic quality. And here he says that dharmana ritu viprayasta. That the essential quality of the season is to manifest a certain characteristic. Heat in summer, cold in winter, wetness in the rainy season. But that had been viprayasta. That had been reversed. So the seasons were not following the dharma. And because of that, the impact was raudram. So, raudram is fearful. Literally, raudram means something that causes lamentation. So people were becoming bewildered and lamenting because of this. So this disturbance was not only in the environment externally, but also within the people themselves. Atmanam, he says. Atmanam means self, and Atmanam means amongst the general population. So what did he see? He saw Nranam, sinful people, Vartram, that they were engaging in the occupation characterized by Krodh, Lobh, Anartha. Krodh is anger, Lobh is greed, and Anartha is cheating. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, during the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira, all the above symptoms were conspicuous by their absence, which means the seasonal irregularities, this Vartam, this Krodh, Lobh, Anartha, they were conspicuous by their absence. So Maharaj Yudhishthira was astonished to experience even a slight change in the godly atmosphere of his kingdom. So if you remember earlier on, in the beginning of the 13th chapter and in the beginning of the 11th chapter, beginning of the 9th chapter, there was a glorification of the kingdom under Maharaj Yudhishthira. How everything was auspicious, how the earth produced abundant grains, how the seasons were coming in the due order. So Maharaj Yudhishthira was used to that, And now he became astonished by even a small change in that. And what was the result? Prabhupada says, at once he suspected the disappearance of the Lord. So because Maharaj Yudhishthira was pious, he could understand that it was not on account of what he did. It was not on account of any sinful activities that were being done by the king that the Praja was suffering. So the only other reason he could understand was that this inauspiciousness was because of the disappearance of the Lord. A man becomes too greedy for wealth and power when he has no higher objective in life, and when he thinks that this earthly life of a few years is all in all. Ignorance is the cause of all this anomalies in the human society, and to remove this ignorance, especially in the age of degradation, the powerful sun is here to distribute light in the shape of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada is making that point again, that one should not think that Krishna has disappeared. He just has changed his manifested form from Krishna being himself to being his sound incarnation. What has actually disappeared is our affinity to Krishna. Okay, next verse, 14.4. Jima prayam vyayahritam satya mishram cha saurdam pitramatra suhud bhratra dhampatinam cha kalkanam. All ordinary transactions and dealings became polluted with cheatings, even between friends. And in familial affairs, there was always misunderstanding between fathers, mothers, and sons, between well-wishers and between brothers. Even between husband and wife, there was always strain and quarrel. So Yudhishthira talked about the seasons, that how the seasons were contaminated. Then he talked about the individuals, that how the individuals were full of anger, anger, greed, and cheating, of krodh, lobh, and anartha. Now he talks about the family unit, or the intimate units. So generalizing something to a population, it is difficult to establish a causality, because the population is non-homogeneous. There are different varnas, different ashrams, different people, and we're talking about the entire world over here. But Yudhishthira is now looking at the ecosystem in which every individual lives. So every individual lives in an ecosystem of relationships, and that is the world problem. What is this ecosystem of relationship comprised of? And that's what he talks about over here. So he talks about father and mother, brother, friends, husbands and wives. So if we were to look upon ourselves and see what drives us to do what we do on a daily basis, what is the most potent effect of us, then these are the people that are most potent. So it's difficult for us to say that we are impacted by the general population of the world or of a country to act in a certain way. But yes, we can relate to the fact that how our friends impact us, how our parents impact us, that affects us more so. So Yudhishthira is making the point that the very building blocks of the societies, which is these intimate relationships, were getting strained. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he says that so he picks upon the word that the transactions were becoming polluted with cheating. So the word that he uses was was Kalkanam. Kalkanam is mutual quarrel, and Shatya is duplicity. So Prabhupada quotes from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela 286, that Brahma Pramad Vipralipsa Karnapata Arsha Vigyavakya Nahi Dosha Eisabha. That mistakes, illusions, cheating and defective perceptions do not occur in the sayings of authoritative sages. So flipping it around, what it means is that these are the things that characterize the conditioned soul, which is Brahma, mistakes, Brahma, which is illusion, Karnapatva, which is defective senses, and Vipralipsa, which is cheating tendency. The strongest is Vipralipsa, which is the cheating tendency. So one may question at this point that if these four defects are characteristic of conditioned souls, then we are still talking about the material world where all the souls are conditioned. Why are they manifesting now? It's not that the souls were liberated and they became conditioned. As long as they're in the material world, they're always conditioned. And Prabhupada explains in the purport, which is an interesting realization, that it is true that the souls in the material world are always conditioned. That's why they are in the material world. But it is also true that they are given the process to mitigate this conditioning. When they stop following this process of mitigation, then the intrinsic conditioning becomes manifest. And Prabhupada links this process of to mitigate the conditioning to devotional service. That by the process of following bhakti, the intrinsic four defects get mitigated. And as soon as the process of bhakti is not followed, they manifest themselves in a much stronger way. So one may also question that all these four defects were also seen in the interaction between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. This cheating and the fact that they were under illusion, all of this is seen. So the understanding is that yes, it was there, but because it was perceived as such a strong discrepancy, Krishna came personally to deal with it. So it's just like in a society where there is no crime committed, and there is a person who's committing crime, then immediately the entire police force descends to rectify that crime or arrest that criminal. So yes, these four defects were very strongly demonstrated by the Kauravas, but the matter of fact is that because they were so out of sync with time, that Krishna himself came to rectify it. Another question that is related to this might appear that Krishna came to re-establish the principles of religion, and it is heralded as an event that is momentous. That Krishna came, he did all this, he did all these pastimes, he orchestrated the great battle of Mahabharata, millions of people died, and then just 3 decades after that, the impact of that seems to be gone. So when it is said that yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhaktir bhavata, paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya duskritam dharma samsthapanarthaya. So did Krishna come to establish religion only for 30 years or 34 or 36 years? That seems to be a lot of effort for a very little period of time. Because Krishna's appearance is not a trivial matter. So Krishna has come and he has done his pastimes. And just 30 years after Krishna has done his pastimes, the effect has been reversed. So there are three perspectives from which this can be understood, and all of them render some understanding of the answer to this question. The first is that what Yudhishthir is observing is a commencement of these discrepancies. So while the words that he's using is strong, but it is strong because it is something that he is not witnessed earlier on. So when a person has never seen things being stolen and he sees one thief stealing, then for that person it's a momentous event. That, did you know? Today I saw a person stealing from another person. Can you imagine this is happening? So in that context, the symptoms that Yudhishthira is describing, they are nascent. They are just appearing at the time, and they will take the due course of time. They will take thousands of years before they manifest fully. In fact, even now they have not manifested fully. We are in the age of Shunar Kali Yuga, the golden age of Kali Yuga. For another 5,000 years they will not manifest completely, and then they will begin to manifest. So that is the potency of the appearance of Krishna. So along the same lines, the second point is made that so the first was made with respect to the appearance of Krishna. The second is made with the what if Krishna had not appeared. So what if Krishna had not appeared, the Kauravas would have ruled. And if Kauravas would have ruled, then the circumstances would have degraded much more rapidly, much more sooner. So what Yudhishthira was seeing was actually a very small semblance of what would have happened if actually Duryodhana and his friends were ruling the planet. The third point that is made is that Krishna's appearance is more so to reclaim the pious than to annihilate the miscreants, and that continues to happen. That by Krishna's appearance, even to this day, we are inspired. We just celebrated Janmashtami, and we are still chanting Krishna's names. We are still inspired by Krishna's deities. So the process of the reclaiming of the devotees began to happen as soon as Krishna appeared, and will continue to happen for a very long time. Okay, I'll pause over here and see if there's any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. In the context of the inauspiciousness at the time when Krishna left the planet, you said that I didn't quite catch it. That you said that inauspiciousness is, in the Kali Yuga, the impious people tend to appear. Does it mean like we have a choice of when we can appear?
We have a choice that is driven by. So this is explained in the Bhagavad Gita in the 14th chapter, I believe, where Krishna says that depending on what one's desires are, one gets attracted to a particular womb, and based on that based on that desire, one gets a certain collection of senses and sensibilities. So the reason that we take birth in the age of Kali is because it resonates with our intrinsic nature. So intrinsic nature being the intrinsic conditioned nature, not that of the of the soul. So the reason that a soul takes birth in a pious family is because it is situated prominently in the mode of goodness. So it is attracted to the womb of a mother, or more generally speaking, it is attracted to a family where piety is predominant, and similarly passion and similarly ignorance. So similarly, conditioned souls that are attracted to impiety are attracted to take birth in the age of Kali.
So I guess like the question is, what happens if the conditions aren't correct? Like, are we in a, like, is there like a realm that one goes to till the time Kali Yuga appears?
So this is not the only universe, right? So I think the question you're asking is that what happens to the pious souls, and what happens to the souls who are strongly devotional. And while we have Kali Yuga over here, in other universes we have other yugas that are going on, and according to a combination of what they desire and what they deserve, they will be taking birth in commensurate circumstances.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I have a couple of questions, Prabhuji. First question is like when Brahma and demigods approach Krishna and requesting his for disappearance from the universe, because when Krishna is there, everything is going good. So why should even they ask? Okay, his purpose is served, but still he, just like because they are also devotees, they would like to have Krishna's presence. Why they ask to Krishna to depart? This is question one. And
so maybe it's better if I go, if you take a pause. So I think the answer to the question is acknowledging the change of times. This discussion happens more so when we read the chapter about how Maharaj Parikshit dealt with the age of Kali. In that conversation, personification of Kali will make this point that it's my time now. And who has ordained that time? Ultimately, it's Krishna. It is because of Krishna's desire that the age of Kali comes. Now, why does Krishna desire for the age of Kali to come? Not to create impiety. It relates back to the question that Varshana Mataji asked. He does not create the age of Kali for impiety to exist, but he creates the age of Kali for impious souls to take birth. If there was no age of Kali, then where will we be? Nowhere, right? We would always be held in Mahavishnu's body. There would be no opportunity for us to appear in the manifest world. There would be no opportunity for us to possibly listen to Krishna Katha. There would be no opportunity for us to make advancements. So the age of Kali, so Kali is himself a demigod. So the age of Kali is there also to serve Krishna and ultimately to help Krishna give the conditioned souls an opportunity to rectify themselves.
yes, Prabhu. That is, thank you, Prabhu. Yeah. And my second question is like, how much actually communication is considered to be a symptom of development, or what should be the right way of communication, Prabhuji? Because Yudhishthir's kingdom is far more superior than current age where we are in, but still he was unaware of Krishna's departure after so long.
So you mean there was no Facebook at the time that you could get on and see what was going on?
Not exactly like that, but that generation and the age is more superior. They should be knowing a lot quicker, or what should be the correct communication? Because now 24 hours we have TV with so much communication and we are seeing results bad. So what is the correct, should be the correct communication in the society?
Difficult question for me to answer, but I can answer in a more general way that Prabhupada would say that a lot of technological innovations that we see in the society now, um, they were present in a greater efficacy in the earlier ages. The only difference was that they were not mechanical. They were affected through the more subtle sciences. Prabhupada talks about this a lot in the chapter that we read about Ashwatthama. That Ashwatthama was casting the Brahmastra, and Prabhupada repeatedly mentions that it's a nuclear weapon, but it did not require any material endeavor, but it was cast through the subtle incarnation of mantras. So everything that is here now was present at the time, and to a much greater extent. And Narad Muni knew everything that was going on, not only in the past and the present, but also in the future. So in the current age, we have made advancements, but we still don't know what's going to happen. Even the weather, we have so many satellites, we have so many devices, but there's always a degree of uncertainty. So the knowledge was, that information was there, the knowledge was there. Yudhishthira was told by Narad Muni about it. From a more grassroots level, that was one person constantly aware of what was happening to a distant relative. There was no telephones, no televisions. I'm not sure how to respond to that question.
Sure.
Prabhu, just to add something, Sanjaya viewing the whole battle, Krishna battle, and he was relating to the Tarash. It was there in a way.
Yeah. There's some kind of television going on there. So the science was there, and how widespread among common people was it, or was it not? Was there a need for it? The fact that we have it now, does it really improve the quality of our life? The fact that we know that that our cousin is going to Switzerland for a vacation and posting his pictures on Mount Jungfrau adds to the quality of our relationship. I don't know. It's a different topic to discuss.
Yes, Prabhuji. Okay, thank you. Probably it is not that much required to know certain things, because obviously we expect immediately to know such an important information like Krishna's departure to Yudhishthira.
Anything else? Okay, so we'll do the 5th verse. Nibitanyatarishtani kale tu anugate nranam lobadya dharma prakritim drishtva vacha nujam nrapaha. In course of time, it came to pass that people in general became accustomed to greed, anger, pride, etc. Maharaj Yudhishthira, observing all these omens, spoke to his younger brother. So Anujam, younger brother, here refers to Bhima. So this is a conversation between Maharaj Yudhishthira and Bhima. Srila Prabhupada in the purport writes that it appears from the statement that all these symptoms of degraded society were unknown to the people of the time, and it was astonishing for them to have experienced them with the advent of the Kali Yuga, or the age of Kali. So this verse also gives us a sense that this is something that Maharaj Yudhishthira had been observing over a time. Because of the confluence of the chapters, we may think that Narad Muni came, he informed Krishna about the departure of Dhritarashtra, he went, and then Dhritarashtra started observing all this. And then Yudhishthira started observing all these symptoms. So by these verses, we can understand that is not really true. That Maharaj Yudhishthira had been observing these symptoms for a while. So Sutta Goswami uses the phrase Kale tu Anugate. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he translates this as to according to time. Srila Prabhupada translates this to in the due course of time. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying that that by using this word Kale tu Anugate, Sutta Goswami is saying that all these events that were observed by Maharaj Yudhishthir was in accordance to the prescribed flow of time. So the meanings are very, very similar, but Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur adds using the more literal translation of Kale tu Anugate indicates that these are activities that appeared because they were prescribed for that time. So in due course of time means that as time went by, these activities were observed. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that because the time went by, these activities were observed, meaning that these activities are characteristic of the activities that happen in the age of Kali, which was manifesting because the time went by. Kale tu Anugate is also applied to Yudhishthir, in which case it means that on observing these activities, Yudhishthir understood that his own time had come. So his own time of departure had come. Okay, next verse, 114.6. Yudhishthruvacha samprasita dvarakayam jishnurbandu didrikshaya yatum cha punnishklokasya krishnasya cha vicheshitam. Maharaj Yudhishthira said to his younger brother Bhimasen, I sent Arjun to Dwarka to meet his friends and to learn from the personality of Godhead his program of work. So this is an interesting verse from the perspective of, I guess, trivia, that this verse is repeated exactly as the first verse of the chapter. The only difference is there it is Sutta Uvacha and here it is Yudhishthira Uvacha. So if you remember 114.1 was Sutta Uvacha samprasya dvarkayam jishnur bandhu didrikshaya Gyatum cha punya shlokasya krishnasya cha vicheshitam. Exactly same verse. The only difference is, in addition to the speaker, is that the word samprastita is samprastito in 114.6. So samsrita is has gone and samsrito is having gone. So here Yudhishthira is saying, I sent Arjun to Dwarka, and there Sutta Goswami is saying that Arjun went to Dwarka. So there is a slight change in the tense of the verse, samstrita and samstrito, but the verse is identical. Okay, next verse, 114.7. Yata saptadunamasa bhimasena tavanujaha nayati kashyava heto naham vedam agyasa. Since he departed, 7 months have passed, yet he has not returned. I do not know factually how things are going on. So here, as I had mentioned, that Yudhishthira himself, he uses this term as saptamasa, that 7 months have saptaduna masa, that to date. Aduna is to date, sapta means 7 months, and masa is months. That to date 7 months have passed. So Yudhishthira also refers to Arjun as Tavanuja, Bhimasena Tavanuja. So factually speaking, Arjun is also the Anuj of Yudhishthir. But he refers to Arjun as the younger brother of Bhim for two reasons. One is that uh, Arjun is next to Bhim, so the younger brother relationship is more direct. For Yudhishthir, he is the younger brother of the younger brother, but Arjun is the younger brother of Bhim, so he calls upon that relationship, or he refers to that relationship. And the second reason is that uh, this is a conventional way of evoking a sense of a communal proximity. So it's like a mother with a son goes to the neighbor, and to the neighboring woman she will say that your son is very naughty. She's referring to her own son, but she's saying that your son is very naughty. So this is just a way of developing communal affection, that my son is like your son, you're like my sister. And we don't see that a lot in the cities in India at least, but we see a lot of that in the villages, where they will often refer to their own relationships in context to the relationship that they derive from the person that they're referring to. So a woman will refer to her husband as her friend's brother or brother-in-law, even though the relationship of the husband is closer. And similarly, a mother, like I said, may refer to her child as the neighbor's child or the neighbor's nephew, even though the child relationship is stronger. So this is, I would not say this is the Vedic way, but this was a Lokik, this was a conventional way of drawing the community together in a natural way, that we are all related to one another. So we see Yudhishthir calling Arjun as Bhimasena Tavanucha, as your brother. Okay, next verse, 114.8. Api deva rishi nadhishta sakalayam upastitaha yadatmano angam makridam bhagwan utasishrakshati. Is he going to quit his earthly pastimes, as Dev Rishi Narad indicated? Has that time already arrived? So Yudhishthira is speaking in this manner to express lamentation about his friend and not to express the real truth. So he is not making a statement of fact over here. He is expressing his, because if this was a statement of fact, then the subsequent questions of Maharaj Yudhishthir would seem to be hypocritical. Where Maharaj Yudhishthir is observing various omens, when Arjun comes, then he asks him different kind of questions. So if he had already ascertained that Krishna had disappeared, then there was no need for him to talk about the inauspicious omens or observing the inauspicious signs in Arjun. But the mood over here is that of lamentation. That when a mother loses the child, in lamentation, she will say, has my child been stolen? Has he died? What has happened to my child? Can I find him? So they're not factual statements. They're basically symptoms of lamentation, and we see that in Maharaj Yudhishthir. The statement made by Narad Muni is there in his mind, so that is why he's relating to it, as Dev Rishi Narad indicated. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that even though Yudhishthir spoke this sort of lamentation, at that point, Goddess Saraswati entered his tongue and made his statements factually true. Not because Yudhishthir wanted them to be true, but because of providence. So, in addition to this, by the appearance of Goddess Saraswati, Yudhishthira Maharaj also spoke of a much higher truth, and that he then explains what is the higher truth. So he analyzes the words in the verses, and he says Yudhishthira is saying Shikshakti, which is translated as has Krishna quit? But Shishrati also means desiring to establish. Then he says Atmano Angam. So in the first context, it means that has Krishna left along with all his Atmano Angam is his plenary portions. But with the different interpretation of Shishrati, that desiring to establish, it means that Krishna desiring to establish his plenary portions has concluded his pastimes, akridam. So kridam means krida. Krida is like playing, translated as pastime, and then there's a double negation. There's akridam, not playing. Akridam means definitely for the sake of performing pastimes. So Krishna, for the sake of performing his pastime, is now desiring to establish his plenary portions. So this is also a little complicated. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur leaves it at this point, but Srila Prabhupada expands on this in his purport, and I'm just going to distill the points. I'm not going to read the purport, but I'm going to distill the points that are made by Srila Prabhupada in the purport that explains this particular understanding of the verse. So Prabhupada says that Krishna has many plenary portions through which he executes different functions. Through some he does protection. Prabhupada quotes 4.7, annihilation 4.8, then following of duties 324, and being a role model 321. So different pastimes are performed by different plenary portions of Krishna. And then Prabhupada makes this very interesting statement in the purport. Thus the Lord Krishna of Vrindavan is different from the Lord Krishna of Mathura or the Lord Krishna of Dwarka. The Virat Roop of Lord Krishna is also different from him by his inconceivable potency. The Virat Roop exhibited on the battle of Kurukshetra is the material conception of this, of his form. So all these plenary portions, they reside in Krishna, and by his Yogamaya potency, they expand from him for performing different pastimes, and by the same Yogamaya potency, they merge into him by his own will. So Prabhupada has first established the relationship between Krishna and his plenary portions, that they are completely dependent on Krishna. So what is a literal translation of plenary? So plenary means having the same potency. So they are all non-different from Krishna. They rest upon Krishna, they manifest from Krishna, and they merge back into Krishna. Then Prabhupada makes the point that when Krishna descended, he came as Swayam Bhagavan. So all the plenary portions were combined into him. This happens once in a day of Brahma, which is 8.64 billion years. So with this understanding, we can now look into Vishwanath Chakravarti's Thakur explanation of Yudhishthir's statement. That so this is what Yudhishthir means. Krishna desired to establish in Vaikuntha his plenary portions who were assisting him in his pastimes. And Prabhupada writes that the Lord left his body means that he left again his plenary portions in the respective dhams, as he left his Virat Roop in the material world. So this is one understanding of what Yudhishthir is saying over here, that in order to establish his plenary portions. So when Krishna came as Swayam Bhagavan, the plenary portion, they left their respective dhams and they merged into Krishna. And they merged into Krishna, and as long as Krishna was there on the planet, then the plenary portions were present with Krishna. Now that Krishna had finished his pastimes, he desired to re-establish his plenary portions in their respective dham, just as he left his Virat roop in the material world. So Prabhupada explains Krishna quitting his body. Therefore, it should be understood that when Lord Krishna was apparently killed by the bow and arrow of the hunter, the Lord left his so-called material body in the material world. The Lord is Kevalya, and for him there is no difference between matter and spirit, because everything is created for him. Therefore, his quitting one sort of body and accepting another body does not mean that he is like the ordinary living being. All such activities are simultaneously one and different by his inconceivable potency. So Srila Prabhupada extends this to even Krishna leaving his material body. So just to summarize again, so Yudhishthira here is saying that is Krishna quitting his earthly pastimes as Devrishi Narad had indicated. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur he doesn't paraphrase, but he gives another understanding of the Sanskrit word, saying that the word quitting is also equivalent to re-establishing. So is Krishna now re-establishing his plenary portions in their respective dhams, in their respective locations? And Prabhupada extends this by saying that just like he's re-establishing his different plenary portions in the different spiritual planets, his leaving his material body is also in the same context. And the second explanation that Prabhupada gives, that in relationship to Krishna, nothing is material. It is only material from our perspective, because we see something different from Krishna. But from Krishna's relationship, everything is the same. Everything is spiritual. So when he leaves his so-called material body, it is the same as him divesting himself of the different plenary portions who had combined with him and descended. So based on this, one may question that if Yudhishthira had this understanding, why is he lamenting? Because Krishna is there, he never leaves. His leaving is notional because he has reappeared somewhere else. And Prabhupada explains that Maharaj Yudhishthira was lamenting the possibility of his disappearing in pursuance of a custom of lamenting the disappearance of a great friend. Factually, the Lord never quits his transcendental body, as is misconceived by less intelligent persons. Such less intelligent persons have been condemned by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita, and they are known as Murhas. Okay, we'll do the next verse. 114.9. Yasmana sampado rajyam dhara pran asan sapatna vijayo lokascha yad anugrahat. From him only all our kingly opulence, good wives, lives, progeny, control over our subjects, victory over our enemies, and future accommodations in higher planets have become possible. All this is due to his causeless mercy upon us. So Yudhishthira in this verse is glorifying Krishna as Bharta. As Bharta Bhokta. Bhokta, of course, Krishna is the enjoyer, but Bharta is one who fulfills all desires. So it's interesting to see that Yudhishthira is speaking like a materialistic person over here. So what did he say that Krishna satisfied? He said, because of Krishna, I had sampada, I had opulence, rajyam, I had kingdom, dominion, I had dara, I had good wives, then I had pran, I had a long and healthy life, kulam, dynasty, progeny, then I had praja, that I had followers. Then I had Sampatana Vijaya, that all around I had victory over my enemies. I had Loka, I had the ascension to higher planets. So, as a pure devotee, Maharaj Yudhishthir is not interested in any one of them. He is not interested in dominion or opulence or a long life. The key word that he is saying is anugraha. That he is saying that we had this as a manifestation of the mercy of Krishna. So he is using all this to demonstrate the mercy of Krishna. The main point that he is making is that he had the mercy of Krishna, and then one may ask, how was this mercy manifesting? So it is easier for Maharaj Yudhishthira to talk about the externals. So he could say the mercy was manifesting by making me equanimous, by making me fixed on the path of religion, and that would be, people would say that is more of his internal realizations. But factually speaking, everything that he is saying externally can be validated. That he actually had as the emperor, he had Rajyam, Sampada, Dara, Praja, Kulam, Prana, and Vijaya. But then he says that all this was possible only by the mercy of Krishna. So essentially, he is glorifying his existence because somehow or the other, it attracted the mercy of Krishna. Maharaj Yudhishthir is also contrasting the age of Kali with the previous age. So while he is talking about himself, in one way or other, all these benedictions were available to the general people in the previous age of Dwapar. That they had opulences, they had good wives, they had long lives, they had progeny, victory over enemies, those who were inimical to them, they had all that. And all these are conspicuous by their absence in the age of Kali. So the point Maharaj Yudhishthir is making is because the people in the age of Kali will not be seeking the anugraha, will not be seeking the mercy of Krishna. All these things that they are aspiring for by the Ugra karma will actually be absent. And for those who are fortunate to seek the mercy of Krishna, even in the age of Kali, all these things will be present for them, whether they like it or not. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, personal labor must be there in addition to the Lord's benediction. But without the Lord's benediction, no one is successful simply by personal labor. The modernized man of Kali Yuga believes in personal endeavor and denies the benediction of the Supreme Lord. Even a great sannyasi of India delivered speeches in Chicago protesting the benedictions of the Supreme Lord. So Prabhupada does not name over here, but he's talking about Swami Vivekananda. So Swami Vivekananda had spoken he was invited to Chicago to speak during the Parliament of World Religions. And he actually had given two speeches. The first one on 9/11, September 11th, and the second on September 27th. And so I don't know the content. I know the content of, I read the first speech, but I don't know the content of the second speech. But Prabhupada obviously does, and he's referring to the fact that the mood of the speech was that karma is supreme. That if one works hard enough, then the benediction of the Lord are forced to follow. And Prabhupada is making the opposite point, that working hard enough is not good enough. All this must be in conjunction with the benedictions of the Lord. Prabhupada in the purport says, therefore the conclusion is that God's sanction is the immediate cause for all happenings, good or bad. Any successful man should feel grateful to the Lord for all that he has achieved. Okay, next verse, 1:14-10. Pashyotpatan naravyagra divyan bhauman sada ihikan daruran samastudurad bhayam no buddhi mohanam. Just see, O man with a tiger's strength, how many miseries due to celestial influences, earthly reactions, and bodily planes, all very dangerous in themselves, are foreboding danger in the near future by deluding our intelligence. So in 11 verses from 10 to verse 20, Yudhishthira will describe the various inauspicious omens he has been witnessing that are foretelling a calamity. So again, the calamity here is not the disappearance of Krishna. The calamity over here is the calamity over here is the appearance of the age of Kali. Just give me 1 minute. I think okay. Sorry about that. My laptop was disconnected, so it was discharging. So if you look at this verse, then Yudhishthira is talking about three kinds of calamities due to celestial influences, divyam, then due to other living entities, bhauman, and caused by one's own minds. He says, sa dahikan. So these are the three kleshas that are experienced by all living entities. Adidevam, Adibhotam, and Adiatmik, by the demigods, by one's own mind, and by the living entities, other living entities. So every living entity in the material world at all points of time is suffering because of the influences of these kleshas. So Yudhishthira is calling out to comment on their. So Yudhishthira is calling out to comment on their intensity. So he's saying, just look at the intensity of these kleshas. As long as one is in the material world, one is always subject to these three kinds of sufferings, but they become more prominent in this when the effect of devotion diminishes. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions about the three kleshas that they are all punishments from the superior energy of Maya under the direction of the Supreme Lord. This energy of Krishna cannot be overcome by the jiva. The Prabhupada is quoting, he does not write it, but he's quoting 7:14, Devihayesha Gunmaya Mamaya Duratya. And then he concludes by saying, however, they can be easily overcome by surrendering to Krishna. So that is what is changing. So what is changing over here is not because of the disappearance of Krishna, but the fact that the tendency of the living entities to surrender to Krishna has now diminished. Okay, so we'll do the next verse. 1:14-11. Urvakshibahavumaham spurantyang punah punah vepatuschapi hridaya aradashanti vipriyam. The left side of my body, my thighs, arms and eyes, are all quivering again and again. I'm having heart palpitations due to fear. All this indicates undesirable happenings. So far Maharaj Yudhishthira was sharing empirical observations, that what he was seeing around. Now he's beginning to talk about what he thinks is going to happen. So he's moving from the present to the future. So far he was saying, I see people become quarrelsome, I see people acting in a certain way, but now he's saying that this is what I think is is going to happen. And Prabhupada in the purport says, when a man's left eye, arm and thigh all quiver constantly, one must know that something is going to happen which is undesirable. So this is the whole science of reading bodily symptoms to understand the confluence of events. Like, and I don't know if this is Vedic, but I have read this somewhere else, that if a woman's left eye quivers, it's considered to be auspicious. But if a man's left eye quivers, it's considered to be inauspicious. So I'm not sure what the source of this is, but if Maharaj Yudhishthira is quoting it, it has to be Vedic. Okay, so I'm going to stop over here and pause for any comments or discussion.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, just a comment on the last part. In the Ramayana, Sita Devi, she had that quivering in her left side, and it is said that it was auspicious because Lord Ram was coming. And Ravana had the same thing on his left, and because it was inauspicious for him.
Okay, so now we have Vedic proof. Thank you, Mataji. Anything else? Any other questions?
Just a comment, Prabhuji. One of Swami Vivekananda's speech on 9/11.
Speech in 9/11. Yeah. It was. The 9/11 is, the date stands out, even though this was hundreds of how many? 1996, 125 years earlier. But yeah, his opening speech is very interesting, actually. Short speech, but very, very. He draws in everybody with his with the speech. You can see that he's a very powerful speaker, because right from the beginning he speaks about the commonalities between religion, and he condemns the differences between them. So this was because Vivekananda was the last person to speak, and before that other religion persons had spoken, and they had all glorified their own respective religions. The Christians had said that our religion is the only way. I'm paraphrasing, they didn't say that, but they basically glorified their own religion. And Vivekananda came and he spoke about the fact that how the Vedic religion is all encompassing, which is why this particular speech, it kind of brought Hinduism and Swami Vivekananda particularly into prominence, because of the different mood that he spoke to. But Vivekananda, that we all know, Prabhupada explains to us, he essentially is impersonalist, and he speaks. He was impersonalist, more of what you could call a humanist. He wanted to more to goodness kind of a person. But in order to do that, he would deny pure devotion, which is why Prabhupada condemns him. Okay, so if there are no more questions, we will conclude over here. Thank you very much. वाञ्छकल्पतरुभयश्चित् कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। शीला प्रभुपाद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंद। हरि हरि।
Thank you.
वैष्णव।